Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Detroit Regional Chamber's 2022 Mackinac Policy Conference sneak peek. Today, we will discuss what it is important to know when attending the 2022 Mackinac Policy Conference. I'm Tammy Kernreich. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Detroit Regional Chamber. Today's discussions will feature a panel of individuals that have attended the conference for many years and have valuable information to pass along to those who are attending for the first time especially, but we also welcome back some of you who are with us that has also attended in the past. We'll be accepting questions from all of you. If you look to the right-hand side, or excuse me, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat icon. If you click on that, you'll see there's a chat box that'll pop up, and that's where you can enter any questions that you have. I'm going to spend about 25 minutes with our panel asking some questions of them, and then we'll look at all your questions. And please, I do need to say that we might not get to all of them, but if we don't, we will provide responses on our website. And where you want to look for that is on DetroitChamber.com/MPC, like in Mackinac Policy Conference. We are planning this great lineup of speakers and panels that have not been announced yet for the conference. And so I encourage you to also visit the Chamber website to stay up to date on the latest agenda information and some of our great speaker announcements that will probably be coming out in the next month or so. So a couple of things I want to share with you just before we get started. Let me first talk about the conference theme for this year's conference. First of all, the theme is the business community's changing civic role in polarizing times. Let's face it, the last couple of years has been very difficult on the business community, especially with the issues that around COVID and continuing issues with new variants. So we'll look at an emphasis on Michigan's business community setting an example in advancing diversity as a strength, utilizing civility and facts in public disclosure, public discourse, building a culture of empathy, and advocating for the fundamental tenets of American democracy. And I will tell you, all of our panelists can speak very well to all of these different items. And one other thing I will tell you that'll be different this year, as the agenda continues to be developed, you're going to find you'll have representatives of business and government, as you always do. But then also, you're going to have some sports included in it, as you can imagine, with a conference chair of our Intellum. A few other important items. Dates of the conference: May 31st, which is a Tuesday, through June 3rd, Friday. We will be, again, as we did last year, requiring COVID vaccination to attend the conference. We will be verifying that through an app that we use called Clear Health Pass. Some of you are familiar with it from last year. And then some other protocols we'll put in place: reduced meeting room capacity, utilizing the Grand Hotel outdoor venues for receptions and gatherings, and masking in the high traffic areas of the hotel. Our partner, the Grand Hotel, is always there to help us to make sure that everything goes smoothly for the conference, but especially as we deal with some of these issues around health and safety. Capacity for the conference will be limited to 1,300 people again. Normally in the past, we've been higher, but again, to keep ourselves safely distanced and allow for gatherings to not be so tight, it will be 1,300. If you do not get registered, you'll be put on a wait list, and so you can tell others that also. Important hotel room availability: call-in day for the Grand Hotel is February the 8th at 8 a.m. And our other friendly partners, properties on the island, will also be taking reservations on February the 8th. Each caller is limited to one room reservation, and really, really important to know when you're working with the hotels for a reservation, a confirmation from the conference office is required. So you have to be registered, receive a confirmation number, and then also save that and give that to the hotel. Hotel numbers are also located on the Chamber website, and I'll repeat that again: DetroitChamber.com/MPC. Now, onto what's really important, this great panel today. Today I have the privilege of speaking with a fantastic panel to discuss the conference in more detail. We have Stephen Henderson. He's a contributor to One Detroit and DPTV host. and DPTV, and he's the host of WDET 101.9 FM and the founding editor of Bridge Detroit. Khalil Rahal, who is the Chief Administrative Officer of Wayne County. Beth Otten, who's the Director of Executive Communications for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. And Carla Walker Miller, founder and Chief Executive Officer of Walker Miller Energy Services, LLC, as well as a member of our board of directors, a member of our Racial Justice and Economic Equity Committee, very, very engaged in the chamber. So let me now introduce our panel. Everyone, it is so great to have you with us today. So my first question, I think this is really important because you're all going to have different perspectives. Can you please talk about, from your experience from attending the conference, why is it valuable for businesses to attend the Mackinac Policy Conference? I'm sure they weigh the value proposition with the cost of a registration, what really goes on there. So I'm really interested in each of your feedback on that. So Stephen, let me start with you.
Thanks, Tammy, and it's good to be here, and it's good to see so many familiar faces already signed in to the sneak peek here. So I have always said and believed that that the value of Mackinac is connection, and it's sort of the intangible connection that that you're able to make. It's not something where you're going to be able to sort of put up a spreadsheet or some sort of report that says, well, I went and did this, and as a result, these 3 or 4 things happen. But it is the kind of thing that you can draw real value back from and enjoy later. I mean, I think Mackinac is as much about what happens after the conference as it is about what happens on the island. And there's great stuff, of course, to do on the island. I mean, I think the program over the last 10 or 12 years has really become this premier showcase of thought leaders and intellectuals who are really talking about matters that are on the edge of our consciousness, the things that we really are trying to figure out, not just in business, but in politics and in policy as well. And the program itself, really does give you a sense of those things and how they're in play or not. But it is the things away from the stage that I think are the real value for people who go. And it's the other people who are there. You have 1,300 folks from mostly Southeast Michigan, but a lot of folks from around the state as well. You may know many of them, but you may also not know many of them. And this is your chance to kind of get to know them, get to know where they're from, what their interests are, and how they align with yours. There isn't another opportunity like this in our state, if you think about it, to where you have so many different people from so many different backgrounds and interests in one place for a week, and as we always say, stuck on an island where if you want to get away, you got to take a boat. That really matters. That those 4 days really do become an opportunity to reshape the water we swim in the rest of the year, and who else is in that water with us. And so I've always said that it's worth going for that extractive value. And again, sometimes it's intangible, but I think over time you really do get to see that it's making a difference for you and your business or your connections, through politics or policy making. For all of us, it actually really matters.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Khalil.
Hey, good morning, Tammy, and thanks for having me on here. And it's nice to see so many people that we recognize that maybe I haven't seen in a while. So it's good morning to everybody. It's a wonderful experience for anybody that's in government, for one, to get a lot of work done actually in a very short period of time, believe it or not. And then two, it's a wonderful professional growth opportunity. I've been with the county executive now for about 7 years. I've gone to the policy conference every year we've had it. And, I can tell you, like in government, there's an internal competition almost amongst our staff to try to be a part of the crew that attends the conference. Because, there's only so much, so many rooms available, so many seats. And so it really has that aura to it amongst the different government staffs. And, we get used to things happening throughout the year. And one of the days that always sort of stands out is, the day that the list comes out about who's going to attend the conference. And I can tell you this, it's funny, it's become a shell game of like, how do we get our hands on the list before it comes out? And it's just kind of one of these things that folks at the chamber protect so well. And it's really helpful for us at the county because, we've got to put together a program for the county executive, right? We ask ourselves every year, what is it that we're going to accomplish this year? Who are we going to meet with? What do the 20-minute meetings look like, and what does the schedule look like? And what are the, it really helps us pay attention to what the topic of conversation is. I mean, a lot of the times, what the themes are going in. And some of the times, my boss or the mayor or one of the other county executives may be on the panel. And there's always these side panels that are really wonderful that either sometimes, we get a chance to speak on or we really have to pay attention to. But what it really tells us is maybe there are some things in government that we're not paying attention to that we ought to pay attention to, because it's the talk of the time. And so, for me personally and for my staff, it's given us a chance to really get a lot of meetings in and a lot of work done in a very intense period of time. And I think Stephen said it so well. Those 2 or 3 days that you're up there really can help set the agenda for what the next couple of months in government might look like. And then it's a really great professional growth opportunity. I can't tell you the things that I have learned over the years, and really brings me great joy to watch people on my staff really work hard to want to attend so that they can get those sort of same learning experiences.
Thank you, Khalil. Beth?
Good morning. Thanks, Tammy. I think we've heard a lot of great things already about the event. But one thing that I think is really important that really sets this conference apart, and I've been attending, I won't tell you, many, many years that I've been attending this conference. And it's the only one that I've been attending for that long. But it's a really unique opportunity to be in a more casual setting where everyone is together. And as you heard Khalil say, he's working to put together a program for his executive. Of course, a lot of us are working behind the scenes to do that. But at the same time, when the list comes out, it's great to see who's going. But even if you're just walking through the hall, you will see 10 people that you've wanted to have a meeting with. And in the span of 3 days, you can hit all of those meetings in a 15-minute coffee, in the lobby, in the dining room, outside, on the porch, and you have the ability to get so much work done in, again, 3 days, and to connect with people on a more personal level. So business is all about relationships, right? So it's about forming and culling and strengthening those relationships. And this is a very easy time to do that. It's a very friendly environment, and people are genuinely happy to see people, and they're authentic in their interactions. It's a very different, unique experience that is not offered, to my knowledge, anywhere else in the state. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Thank you. It's interesting. I had someone tell me a story the other day that you might remember that one of the elements on the agenda is the ice cream social.
Yes.
And Sadie's Ice Cream Parlor. Well, I never realized, even how much of an element that is. This individual told me she stayed beyond the event and ended up having 5 different meetings, sitting right there having ice cream. That was just interesting.
Maybe 5 different flavors of ice cream at the same time. I mean, you can't get better than that. Well, so there you go.
Okay, Carla.
Hi, Tammy, and thanks for inviting me. Yeah, as everyone said, the connection, the impromptu meetings, whether they are over ice cream or barbecue or just on the front porch over a drink. I started attending Mackinac probably 15 years ago, and a big secret for the small and middle market businesses, I absolutely could not afford Mackinac. One of my friends had to talk me into going, and it's the best investment I ever made. I have not missed one since that time because there was no opportunity, especially for me at that time. I was in rooms with people that I would never have had the nerve to call for an appointment, number one, even if I had thought to. And people who would not have taken my call had I called them at that time. So the value of being in spaces and places in a casual setting where people are relaxed and want you to win cannot be overstated. I call Mackinac, especially for, again, small and mid-sized businesses, leaning out. We can always, we have these organic relationships when we're not on the aisle, and we have circles that we move in. And Mackinac is an opportunity to move in every circle that exists. And it's not just the business elite. There are people who want to be heard, who just know that that is the place to be, people who want to hear things they don't normally hear. So it really is a unique opportunity and a really rewarding experience.
Thank you, Carla. You all just covered, a lot about the opportunities for business networking and connections and informal, spontaneous meetings and that you would never get with others. Khalil brought up county executive preparation. I get a lot of questions, or there's always a lot of sometimes coverage about the attendance of elected officials. So what I really like to hear from all of you on is how important it is that these elected officials from all levels of government are present, but particularly from our state and federal levels. And so let me start with you, Khalil, since you do represent government.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues in government is sometimes maybe the lack of coordination from different levels of government, right? And I think I can tell you, the county executive and the mayor of Detroit have known each other for 30 years. And that background of that relationship is really helpful when you talk about county services in the city of Detroit. And that goes across all spans of government, by the way. I see Congresswoman Dingell on here, and I cannot tell you how hard she works at making sure we're spending our federal dollars in the way that she intended when, she voted on or fought hard to get a bill passed. And, she's not shy about letting you know those types of things. And so we all get to be at the conference together, and coordination amongst different levels of government is key. Most of the time, citizens, they don't care whether it's, your city tax or your county tax or your state tax or your federal tax. It's their money, and they want to make sure that the services that they voted for are being performed to the best of their abilities. And so having different levels of government there to be able to talk about things, to collaborate together, incredibly key. And again, as others have said before, to be able to handle that so quickly and so efficiently is incredible. I can't tell you, there are times, plenty of times, where the mayor of Detroit, the governor, and the county executive will have a conversation together. And what that will do for different regional authorities, what that will do for legislation that's looking to pass, what that will do for ultimate infrastructure funding, and hopefully the future of things like public transportation and those types of real high level key issues, is so very, very important. And it can take months to have those conversations, where the Mackinac Policy Conference, you can have those conversations sometimes in minutes.
Thank you, Khalil. So Stephen, you come in at this with a couple of different areas of perspective. Obviously, you represent so many areas of our community and have a real pulse on what's happening and issues that are important, but you also are a member of the media. So I'm really anxious to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, as a media member, I mean, the conference looks really different, obviously, than it does for everyone else. I mean, we've got our own little room, sort of cordoned off from the theater where we all kind of work together, and they give us food, and of course we're there to try to tell the story of Mackinac each year, and I've had the privilege of doing that for a number of different news organizations, including Detroit Public Television, which for the last, I think it's 12 years now, 10 or 12 years that we have broadcast live during most of the conference. The value to us as media members, I think, again, is the ability to talk with people in a really different setting than we do. When we're back here just chasing after stories, and there's sometimes some criticism of the coziness that the media kind of enjoys with newsmakers up there. But I've always thought that was a strength and not a weakness, that actually being able to sit down and talk to somebody outside the pressure of the urgent news environment, getting a chance to ask people deeper questions about the things that they're doing, to really understand not only the politics, but the kind of policy questions that are being debated. I mean, it's invaluable. And I know a lot of journalists in the state who have gone for the first time and really been blown away by what they're able to come back with, the perspective that they have, the knowledge and understanding that they're able to gain while they're there. We're not there for vacation or to have a good time. I mean, I work harder that week on Mackinac than I do any other week of the year. It's so much that in fact, I've always now taken the next week off. I tape enough radio and television up there so that I can sleep, the week after Mackinac, because it's like drinking from a fire hose, the number of people that there are, the number of issues. Also as a journalist, I'd be remiss in not pointing to some of the really big stories that have happened and come together while we were on Mackinac. So the deal to build the new bridge to Canada came together because you had the right people on Mackinac to make that deal. And those of us who were there as members of the media were covering that in real time. We've been here in Detroit, you'd have missed that. The grand bargain to settle the bankruptcy here in Detroit, a critical part of my work as a journalist here in Detroit. That all came together on Mackinac. I could go on and on about the stuff that has gotten done up there that we've had to cover and write about, but being there and having everybody else there, always was the key to that stuff working for us.
Right. That's such a great point, Stephen. Carla, your thoughts?
Yeah, for many of the state reps and local figures, believe it or not, I first really became personally acquainted with them, not in Detroit and not in Lansing, but at Mackinac. And that really is the most reliable place there is to see them. And the value of seeing county executives, mayors, not just from Southeast Michigan, but from the west side of the state, from all across the state. And just really being able to it's almost like being a fly on the wall, because you get the deeper version of all the conversations and the debates. You get the backstory, the rest of the story, and the next story from your local politicians, all at the same time from different perspectives at Mackinac. So it's important, it's fun, and it's enlightening.
Thank you. Beth.
Well, I think that today's the conversation for this coming event with the business community's civic role in polarizing times speaks to the importance of bringing together the business community and the elected official community in exactly what has been said before. I mean, we have tackled huge issues as a organization, as a region, as a state, by coming together in this unique experience. And you know, again, going back to that opportunity to have these conversations, these coffee conversations with people that you would not normally, you'd have to wait a long time to get on a list, to have a meeting, you see in the hallway and you catch for 5 minutes, or you say, I'll meet you at the Audubon bar at 3 o'clock between sessions, right, Tammy, and have a, you know, have a coffee or get, like, and inform them about what you want to talk about, or ask them the 3 questions. But having that, bringing together this group of the business community and elected leaders really helps set the stage, set the tone, and tackle the big problems that we're facing. I'm really looking forward to this year's topic and energy around that.
Yeah. Well, I think is also, you know, another piece of this that as we talk about government officials being there, this is going to be an important election year. So, you know, I'm interested, whoever from the panel might want to talk to that about the importance of elected officials there.
Well, I could go first. I'm not an elected official, obviously, but boy, Mackinac would be of significantly less value to me if elected officials weren't there. And I know that, you know, this past year we had a real challenge getting all of the elected officials we wanted to be there. To be able to be there, and sometimes that happens. I mean, they do have work sometimes to be able, that, you know, that prevents them from going. But in election years, you know, Mackinac is often the first time we get a close look at some of the folks who are running for some of these offices, and when we get to hear, you know, more specifics about who they are and why they're running and what they want to do. Of course, Nolan Finley and I have moderated a fair number of debates among hopefuls. Sometimes that's gone really well. Sometimes that's gone really poorly. I'm thinking of, I think 2010, when we had, I don't know, was it nine gubernatorial candidates on the stage for a debate? That was interesting. No, I mean, it's a critical part of this because it's a business conference, but business really depends very much on the policy environment and the political environment to thrive. And the officials who are elected to do that are a critical part of that. And so I can't imagine a successful Mackinac without the public officials being there. And it's always better the more of them who are there. I loved the way former Governor Snyder really made Mackinac, you know, a huge platform for himself. I mean, I didn't always agree with what he's doing or what he's saying, but he saw that as a way to advance the conversation about so many different things in this state. And I haven't seen another governor use it quite as effectively, but it speaks to the potential there.
Tammy, you mentioned that, you know, this being an election year, and in my number of years, which will remain unspoken, of attending the conference, election years are pivotal years for the conference. I think that, you know, you have generally there's been an abundance of elected officials wanting to come and meet and talk with the attendees, really get to know them. Sometimes there's a variety of conversations that are ongoing, and you have the opportunity sometimes to support those elected officials in numerous ways while on the island. But it will be a driver, I think, for attendance this year. So, you know, if you've never attended and you're looking forward to attending, I would recommend that you register early, because it's going to go fast. But yeah, these years are very informational, And again, the conversation that's happening, I think, will be very dynamic, especially given the election year.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Tammy. The extent to which businesses drive the agendas of cities and states makes the energy politics nexus just so viable, so vibrant, so important. And I think I'm only in the last few years am I realizing the relationship between business and politics and the importance of driving, especially as we were talking about climate change and the clean energy transformation and all the things that are affecting us. Those are not just business issues. They're not just community issues. They are political issues as well. So the conference wouldn't be the same without the presence of the political leaders and the political hopefuls.
Right. And I think, you know, the point about business issues and the business voice being important to be shared, you know, with the elected leaders, you know, the other side of it that, you know, from the chamber's perspective to us is important is that we're allowing a statewide conversation on the business issues for all of the elected candidates that can, in most cases, be very common voices, you know, very, very important. So I mentioned earlier about us restricting the reservation numbers and to accommodate better use of spacing out the areas from a safety standpoint. I'm really anxious to hear from you because you did attend last year, first time, you know, that we didn't have 1,800, we had 1,300. How do you think that was received and will be received again?
That extra 500 people was crowding me out, seriously. It was amazing how much better the environment was by limiting the number of people, how much more comfortable. Almost every session, the lunches, everything was easier and less stressful. So I thought it was going to make a negative difference, but it really was a positive difference in my eyes.
Yeah, Tammy, I heard lots of feedback last year, and you know, speaking from the Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan perspective as well, and being one of your sponsors for also many years, we really enjoyed, and I really enjoyed personally, the opportunity to connect more with people because there was, you know, not as many folks there. So, but the quality of the interaction was fantastic. And, you know, it was still very diverse and in business. And then I see, so we have a question about the nonprofit sector. And even with elected officials, I think that you have the opportunity to have more conversations with more people because it's not as compact. And I heard that time and time again from other folks.
All right, good. Yeah, to the comment, the question around the nonprofit sector in the conversation, you know, the one thing that, especially if you haven't attended in the past, you should know, the nonprofit and philanthropic sectors are tremendous partners to us in those extra side sessions that Stephen brought up. You know, because we're limited in the number of, you know, sessions on stage for keynote speakers and panels, there's a lot of other community issues that deserve attention. And we have nonprofits and philanthropic organizations that actually sponsor, you know, side sessions on really very important issues, bring in great speakers and resource individuals so that those conversations then also do take place. And what we haven't talked about, and Stephen talked a little bit about, is what action do we take when we get back home? You know, this issue is impacting us. It's great to have a conversation today, but how are we going to act on it? What are we going to do different? Anyone want to talk about that?
Well, and I think, you know, for government, right, oftentimes those nonprofits speaking to the heart of those community issues are oftentimes real government issues. So it's incredibly valuable to hear from all walks of life, from everywhere, from the business community on what's impacting their businesses and how we keep our commerce and economy going. But there's a real value in hearing from nonprofits on different community issues. And you will find that oftentimes after these conferences, the actions that we take are usually partnering up with those nonprofit community issues to tackle some of the common themes that we have going on. I think, I can tell you for Warren Evans, he'd much rather have 1,300 people than 1,800 people. And if you know him, you know that that's true. That's true because, and I'll tell you, most elected officials probably appreciate depth, sort of, a wide variety of just hitting and being able to see you met with somebody. If you're really trying to get something done, you want, more intensity into the issue. And so, that's what this sort of new frame of the conference provides. And so I think we're probably more excited to go, this next year than, any year because of the format. And I think something that I think others have talked about earlier is, Mackinac is a great way to get access to elected officials, and it's a great way for elected officials to get their message out. We make, an announcement, or we see an announcement from, one of our government partners almost every year at Mackinac. And it's because, it's a place where all of our partners are usually at. It's a place where we make announcements with both the nonprofit sector and the business community, like we did last year with our rental assistance programs. And people get excited about that. And it really helps us carry out the mission, in months to come.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts on that before I head into another question? Okay, so this is one of my favorite questions to always ask because it's always fun to hear this. So for those that are watching today and are considering being a first-time attendee and become a first-time attendee, what is your best advice to them as a first-time attendee?
I think someone said earlier, get the list. Get the list so you'll be prepared. Pay attention to the list of attendees because it will overwhelm you, number one, but it will, and I'm speaking for myself as a natural introvert. The list is overwhelming, but it will also inspire you to make the appointments that you need to make to see the people who are going to be there that you wouldn't normally have access to, and to be in the rooms where the people that you want to be in the rooms with are. So I would say, number one, get the list, make the appointments, and enjoy the porch. The porch is one of the most valuable places on the aisle. And if you have no other agenda, just strolling through the up and down the porch on sunny days will inspire you to do things that you really need to do.
Thank you, Carla.
I think as important as getting the list and making appointments or being aware who's going to be there is you have to wear comfortable shoes.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, when you show up to these casual appointments, you're not going to be very friendly because your feet hurt because you're walking all the time. So comfortable shoes, pack lots of layers. We're back in the spring. There's going to be hot weather, cold weather, rainy weather. There's all kinds of Michigan weather to enjoy everywhere, but especially on the island. So lots of layers, thin layers, but comfortable shoes. That doesn't sound very businessy, but it's very important.
Very good point.
The clothing thing is really important. I mean, I have to admit that I'm something of a failure with regard to the packing. I have a whole closet full of clothes that I have bought on Mackinac because I was inappropriately outfitted for the weather. I mean, it's hard to predict sometimes, right? There's been times we go up there, it's just freezing cold, and I didn't think that, or other times it's really hot. The other thing I would say to people who are going for the first time is set realistic goals for yourself. It's a big conference. This is a lot of people, and it does feel overwhelming, I think, at times. Now, 1,300 is a lot less overwhelming than 1,800. I was surprised last year at the difference that 500 people made. I mean, it really did feel more accessible and manageable, but that's still 1,300 people. I mean, how often are any of us in a situation with that many others? You know, pick out some really discrete goals for yourself that you want to get done that week. You know, a specific number of people or specific kinds of connections you want to make, and you know, don't over expect. You know, don't over pressure yourself to have to kind of prove that this was worthwhile. I mean, it really is the kind of thing that builds, I think, over time. And your first time is not when you're going to get everything done. You know, I think you make a habit of this and work at it each year, and continue to kind of build on what you started.
Yeah, I think, listen, have a plan. I think everybody sort of said it. Have a plan going in. I think one of the worst things, you know, one of the biggest opportunity losses that you could experience is showing up knowing that there's a lot of good people to meet and there's a lot of good places to go and conference, you know, information to gather, and just sort of making your way through it. Because what you will find is if you plan your clothing out right, if you plan your shoes out right, if you get the list, you plan your meetings out right, if you plan which, you know, panels you have to see, if you plan your evenings and mornings out right, you will get so much out of the conference. And, you know, I can't tell you enough. I mean, I've seen other businesses grow from what they've experienced at this place.
And I see in the chat box, Priscilla Archangel, you are absolutely correct. As a new member of our board, we're really pleased to have Priscilla. The networking does start at the dock. While you're waiting there for that ferry, you've got lots of people around you to start to get you warmed up for the experience. So before we leave, we've got about 3 minutes left. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you think is important to share? Okay.
I think,
Oh, go
Tammy,
ahead, Beth.
your the conversation about, you know, pulling it back all together, having a plan, checking out the agenda and the list, taking a look at your, you know, kind of getting it all together and then approaching this and remembering that it's because we're talking about all of these important could be overwhelming going into this huge conference where all of the important people are to have a conversation. It's a relaxed atmosphere. And if you make those top 3 goals, who you want to see, what events you want to go to, it will be a great experience. And let yourself be open to that. I think that would be the only other thing I would add.
And Tammy, I'd like to mention that last year was the most diverse Mackinac Policy Conference by far. So I want to encourage everyone. It really is a welcoming, inclusive space. So don't talk yourself out of being there because you don't belong. If you're serious about business, if you're serious about the state, if you're serious about Southeast Michigan and Detroit, you do belong there.
Thank you. That's a really important point. And for those who are watching, Carla's probably one of our biggest advocates for diversity and inclusion at the conference, whether it be on the stage, whether it be the attendees, whether it be in the panels. So that's really very, very important. So that's a really valuable add-on. Thank you, Carla. I appreciate that. Before I close it out, I'm going to give you my one tidbit that I always share if you're coming for the first time, or if you're a returning attendee and haven't heard this, then mine's kind of funny, actually. You know, you get plastic grocery bags at the grocery store, and sometimes you save them, sometimes you don't. Pack them in your suitcase, put your shoes in to take home in the suitcase. That's because we have a lot of horses on the island.
Yes.
So first of all, let me thank our panel for their insights and their suggestions to make the 2022 Mackinac Policy Conference a valuable experience. Again, let me say, if you have not already registered and you really do want to go, I really suggest you do it because we will be limiting attendance. And then if you still have questions after today's event, which I'm sure you will, I'm going to remind you, DetroitChamber.com/MEC. And I'll close by saying, we look forward to seeing all of you on the island with all of our programming taking place at the historic Grand Hotel, a lot of downtown activity that, you know, I never get to see because I'm usually working, but there's just so much to be experienced on the beautiful island. Mackinac Island is like nothing else. So for all of you who joined us today, thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everyone
Thanks,
take
Tammy.
care.
Good seeing everybody.
Bye-bye.